You're asking because you already know. Those were the first words Carlton Vane said when Brielle confronted him. No lies, no denial, no shame, and no apology. She stood at the top of the stairs in the house she helped him build, not with money, but with strategy, with structure, with soul. The man she married looked right through her, and she didn't flinch. She didn't scream, didn't crumble, didn't ask why, because she already knew. He didn't choose Talon because she was better. He chose her because she was louder, and Carlton never wanted the spotlight to shine beside him. He wanted it to shine on him. And Brielle? She'd learned how to hold the light, not steal it. But that night, she walked away from his shadow for good. Welcome to Mr. Charles Stories, where we don't just tell stories, we tell real-life lessons through love, pain, and power. If you've ever been overlooked, discarded, or told you're not enough, this story is for you. Like, comment, and subscribe if you've ever walked away from someone who didn't see your value until you stopped trying to prove it. Let's get into it. Brielle Knox had always known when a room shifted. She could feel it in the stillness, in the way conversations slowed down when she entered. Not out of intimidation, but respect. She never had to be loud to be present, never had to dress up her worth to be seen. Her mother, a seamstress from Macon, Georgia, raised her that way. Walk into any room like God sent you there, she used to say. So Brielle did, through college, through her early brand jobs, through startup pitches that told her she was too poised to be hungry, and especially when she met Carlton Vane. He was older, wealthy, confident in a way that made rooms lean in, CEO of Creed Legacy, one of Atlanta's most visible family-backed brands. But it wasn't the money that drew her in. It was that he listened, or at least pretended to. They met at a charity networking event in Midtown. She was standing near the back, watching the panel, taking notes on her phone. Carlton walked up with 2 glasses of white wine and said, "You don't belong in the back. You think like a leader." Brielle blinked. "You don't even know what I'm thinking." "I know what thinking looks like," he said. He asked about her ideas, her goals, what kind of brands she'd love to build from the ground up. He didn't interrupt. He didn't check his phone. He told her he liked her mind. Back then, she believed him. Their courtship was fast but respectful. Brielle had boundaries. Carlton respected them, or so she thought. Within months, she was consulting for his brand behind the scenes. Never on payroll, never with a title. But her ideas? They moved things. She didn't mind not being in the credits. She believed in partnership, not performance. Carlton told her he wanted a woman who didn't crave the limelight. "It's rare," he'd said, touching her wrist gently. "You're rare." So she stepped back. Let him lead the brand announcements. Let him take full credit at galas. Let herself blend into the background. But power has a short memory, and the more Carlton gained, the less he remembered how he got there. It started with small shifts, a campaign proposal she never saw, meetings he used to run by her, suddenly scheduled without her, phone calls that used to be on speaker now taken in another room. His phone stopped ringing, or maybe he turned the ringer off. Dinner turned into silence. The man who once studied her every word now barely noticed when she walked into a room. Still, she tried to be understanding, tried not to accuse, not to assume, until the night of the Buckhead fundraiser. They were hosting a black tie event for Creed Legacy's scholarship fund. The ballroom was glowing. Guests in sharp suits and shimmering dresses milled around sipping champagne. Brielle had stepped into the back kitchen to grab a moment of quiet. She was checking the rundown for the keynote when she heard laughter. A familiar one. Talon, her best friend since freshman year at Spelman, the girl who'd helped her move across apartments, the one who knew everything, even Carlton's schedule better than Brielle did at times. Talon's voice echoed lightly off the marble counters. "I mean, she's sweet, but she's boring. Carlton needs someone with more presence, silence." Then, laughter. A pause. Then, another sentence. "You said she doesn't even care about image, right? So let me step in and handle that." Brielle stood frozen. No one saw her. But she saw everything now. That night, Carlton came home late. No text, no call, no excuse. She sat in the living room, the lights low, his steps slow. When he reached the stairs, she stood at the top, arms crossed. "You sleeping with her?" she asked. His eyes didn't widen. His jaw didn't clench. He didn't blink. "You're asking because you already know," he said. She nodded once. Tight. Final. Then she turned. She didn't shout. She didn't pack a whole suitcase. Just 2 outfits. 1 laptop. A notebook filled with old branding frameworks. A USB with her original logo work. And a single black tote. She left a house full of luxury to go find her name. Because she knew she may have married a billionaire, but her value was never tied to his net worth. She had her own, and starting tomorrow, she'd remind herself of that. One move at a time. Suite 210 smelled like new carpet and lavender spray. Not wealth, not home, but peace. Brielle placed her bag on the chair by the window and sat at the edge of the bed. The hum of the city pulsed through the double-paned glass, but inside it was still. She'd never been here before. Not this hotel, not this part of town. It wasn't far from the house she left behind, but it felt like a new country. Midtown was louder, faster, rougher in some corners, but right now, it was hers. She looked around. 1 desk, 1 lamp, 1 mirror. No Carlton. No silence between them. No pretending to be fine for the sake of image. Just her. For the first time in years, she powered on her laptop. The startup tone filled the room like a drumbeat. She opened a blank document. Then, out of habit, she pulled out her phone. She had no intention of calling him. She called someone else. Her mother. "Hello?" Her mother's voice came quick, light with concern. "Brielle? Baby, everything okay?" There was a pause. Then Brielle exhaled. "I'm okay." "You sure?" "No," she said honestly, "but I will be." Her mother didn't rush to respond. She waited. Brielle let the silence sit. It didn't feel like the cold silence she'd gotten used to with Carlton. This one felt open, like space for breath. "He cheated," Brielle finally said. "Carlton, with Talon." The line stayed quiet. Then, softly, her mother asked, "Where are you?" "Midtown. A hotel. I just needed to get out." "You did the right thing." "I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I just left." Her mother's voice thickened. "You don't have to cry to be broken, baby. But don't forget, you were whole before him. I don't want to be broken. I want to build. You always knew how to start from nothing. Do it again. But this time, do it with your name on the door." Brielle pressed her lips together. That part, her name, her work, her worth. "I love you, Mama. I love you too. And baby, yeah? Start tonight. Don't wait till tomorrow." She opened her browser and typed in brielleknoxcreative.com. Domain, available. She bought it. Then opened an old folder she hadn't touched in over a year. Brand build concepts, final real one. There, inside were mock-ups from back when she used to dream about starting her own agency. Logos, templates, strategy frameworks, things she never showed anyone. Because Carlton said, "Let's wait till the time is right." The right time had come, wrapped in betrayal, and she wasn't wasting it. She built a new Google sheet titled Women-Owned Startups Potential Leads. She began listing all the small brands she'd admired over the past 2 years. Mostly black-owned, mostly underfunded, mostly unseen. She wrote down 12 names, all women building something from nothing. Just like she had once done. Just like she was about to do again. She started drafting emails. Cold. Direct. No fluff. "Hi, my name is Brielle Knox. I'm a brand strategist and storyteller. I've worked behind the scenes for multi-million-dollar companies and luxury brands, but I'm now building something different, something honest, something creative, something for people like you. If you're open to a conversation about branding, packaging, story alignment, and digital presence, I'd love to help you grow. No big agencies, no retainer traps, just focused, customized work with measurable results. If this sounds interesting, I'd love to talk. Warmly, Brielle. She sent all 12 messages, each with a portfolio link she built in under 2 hours using Canva templates she hadn't opened in months. Then she closed the laptop. She had no expectations, but she had movement. And for now, that was enough. By morning, she had one reply. Just one. Subject line, "We can't afford much, but maybe we can build something." It was from a founder in Dallas, a natural hair care brand with a following under 5,000 and no budget for marketing. They could offer $10,000 total. For everything: visuals, messaging, storyline, launch, help. $10,000 for the whole thing. It wasn't close to what she used to charge behind Carlton's back for his campaigns, but it was real. And it was hers. She opened the reply and reread it 3 times. Then she smiled. It wasn't about the money. It was about the yes. She wrote back 2 lines. "Let's build. I'm all in." The next 2 weeks moved like muscle memory. She built out the brand's new voice guide, removed the fake sophistication they'd been told to use by other freelancers, kept it intimate, warm, like women talking across a kitchen counter. She rewrote the product descriptions, then redesigned the packaging using bold colors and simplified text that felt elevated but still rooted. She called in favors from a few photographers she once mentored. She booked 3 pop-ups in Atlanta, Charlotte, and Birmingham using DMs and emails alone. No agencies, no budgets, just hustle. She designed the launch visuals herself. No stylists, no high-concept production, just the product, real women, and story-driven captions. The night before the Atlanta pop-up, she was up until 3 a.m. cutting branded stickers and folding thank you cards. Her hands were sore, but her spirit was still. She caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Same woman, same skin, same eyes. But something was different. She wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. She was building from what was left, and she wasn't ashamed of what she'd walked away from. She was proud of what she was walking toward. The pop-up started slow. Atlanta was humid that Saturday, the kind of heat that made you second-guess why you left your AC. Brielle stood under a small white tent on the corner of Edgewood and Boulevard, surrounded by folding tables and bottles of shampoo lined in straight rows. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't curated for Instagram. But it was real. She had a clipboard, a portable speaker playing a soul playlist, and a card reader clipped to her phone. A few women from the neighborhood wandered over out of curiosity. Some sniffed the product and nodded politely. One said, "You the owner?" Brielle shook her head. "I'm the strategist. But I believe in the brand." The woman raised an eyebrow. "You talk like you built it yourself." She smiled. "That's the goal." By noon, the crowd thickened. Someone posted a short clip to TikTok, a video of Brielle breaking down the ingredients, holding the bottle like it mattered. The caption read, "This woman made me believe in conditioner again." By 3 p.m., they had sold out of the twist creams. By 5 p.m., they had only 8 shampoos left. The founder stood beside her, half in tears. "I don't know what's happening," she whispered. Brielle knew. They were watching story work. They were watching alignment hit. They were watching people connect, not with a logo, but with a feeling. That night, back in her suite, Brielle took off her shoes, sat on the carpet, and stared at the wall. Not because she was exhausted, because she couldn't stop smiling. She used to help Carlton pull 6-figure activations that never felt this full. She'd worked rooms with celebrity sponsors and fashion influencers, but this moved something. A part of her that had been buried under performance and pretending now felt sharp again. Awake. She opened her laptop and checked the campaign hashtag. There were over 70 new posts, TikToks, Instagram stories, even a review thread on Twitter. She clicked on one video. A woman held up the deep conditioner and said, "I met this brand strategist today. Y'all, she made me cry." Her words? "I bought this product out of respect." Brielle clicked replay. Then again, not out of pride, but gratitude. Because in a world obsessed with perfection, someone had chosen honesty. And she was the one who'd made that possible. Charlotte came next. Then Birmingham. Each city faster than the last. By the third event, the founder had doubled her inventory. A local boutique buyer reached out. "Can we stock this in our store?" Brielle set up a wholesale agreement that night. The packaging they'd redone, it made the shelf look like a magazine cover. The voice guide made sales reps confident. Everything clicked, and word started to spread. Quietly, but surely. On the fourth Sunday after the tour, Brielle was back in Atlanta. She wore her favorite grey sweats, hair tied up, no makeup. She walked to the corner cafe by her hotel. No meetings, no pressure, just a journal and an iced green tea. She sat by the window, crossed her legs, and opened a clean page. At the top, she wrote, "Brielle Knox Creative, version 1 below it," she listed. And brand clarity package and story framework services and visual refresh kit and product messaging. Alignment and launch support, light and pop-up experience blueprint. Each item had a number. She wasn't doing this just for that one hair care brand anymore. She was building something that could move without her hand on every piece. It was time to go from project to platform. That night, her phone buzzed. Not with drama, not with pity, with results. The founder texted her a screenshot. "We sold out online. Entire restock. Gone in 3 hours." Then a second text. "I can't believe I get to say you're my brand strategist." Brielle paused. Then, for the first time since she left Carlton, she cried, softly. No sobs, no gasps. Just release. Because the message wasn't about praise. It was about truth. She didn't need Carlton's last name to matter. She didn't need Talon's friendship to feel grounded. She had done this, with her mind, with her gut, with her name. Later that week, she got an email from an early-stage wellness company in Florida. Then one from a clean fragrance startup in Houston. Then a message request from someone with a private profile that said, "We saw what you did with that hair brand. Can we talk?" Brielle clicked the profile. Empty. The name wasn't real, but the message was clear. She read it twice, then caught the line that made her sit still, looking for a fresh, authentic touch, something with story, something with feeling. At the bottom, the email signature had one clue: Creed Legacy Media Contact. Her old life had just knocked on her new door. And this time, she wasn't opening it. She didn't respond. She archived the message, then opened her spreadsheet and wrote 2 new words under next steps. Protect peace. Because growth didn't mean going back. It meant building forward, on purpose. It started with a text from a number she had deleted months ago. "Talon, saw your name in a tweet. You still bitter?" Brielle stared at the message. It wasn't the words that surprised her. It was the tone. Still, as if betrayal had an expiration date. As if getting cheated on by both your husband and your best friend was something you were supposed to move past, like it hadn't cracked your world open. She didn't respond. There was nothing to say to someone who called accountability bitterness. 2 days later, Talon called. Blocked number. Brielle almost declined, but something made her answer. "Let me guess," Talon said, skipping hello. "You think this little business makes you better than us now?" There was no us anymore, and there never would be again. Brielle kept her voice calm. "You chose small. What's that supposed to mean?" "You heard me." Click. She hung up before Talon could start defending the indefensible. Because Brielle didn't owe her an explanation. She'd already done the hardest part, letting go of the illusion that Talon was ever on her side. The next email came 3 days later. No alias this time. The signature at the bottom read, "Carlton Vane, CEO, Creed Legacy. Subject, business proposal. Let's reconnect." She didn't open it. She didn't have to. She knew what it was. She knew the tone it would carry. The slight flattery disguised as opportunity. The kind of proposal that sounded like respect but still came from a place of control. He wasn't looking for her creativity. He was looking to clean up his image using her name. Because what's more appealing than a comeback story? Especially if the man gets to position himself as evolved. But she wasn't interested in being anyone's redemption arc. That Friday, Brielle walked into a co-working space she'd started renting weekly. The walls were raw brick. The desks open. The room smelled like new ambition and second chances. She liked it here. She could think. She could move without the weight of her last name trailing behind her. As she unpacked her laptop, her inbox pinged again. Another email from Carlton. Subject, following up. I'd love to schedule a call. Still unread. Still unimportant. She wasn't angry anymore. She was uninterested. There's a difference. Later that night, she met up with one of the photographers she worked with during the pop-up tour. They'd built a solid creative rhythm, and he'd invited her to preview a shoot for a new client. Brielle arrived at the studio early, sat quietly in the back, watched him work the light, the angles, the vibe. Then someone walked in behind her. Tall, quiet, polished. He nodded toward the setup and asked, "You help style this?" "No," she said. "Just watching. You watch like someone who knows how to lead." She glanced over. He wasn't smiling to charm her. He was being real. "I build brands," she said simply. "Then you built this energy. Even if you didn't touch the camera." He stuck out his hand. "Kaylin Miles." She shook it. "Brielle." They didn't talk much after that, but the introduction stayed with her. His tone didn't sound like most men in that room. He wasn't pushing. He wasn't fishing. He wasn't trying to impress her with buzzwords. He just noticed. And right now, that was rare. That weekend, Brielle finally responded to the last few brand inquiries sitting in her inbox. She turned down 2 that didn't align and set up calls with 3 others that felt promising. She worked a full day on the scent branding for a clean fragrance line out of Houston. She was designing mood boards for the packaging when her phone lit up. Another message from Carlton. No email this time. He'd texted. "Carlton, you've built something. I'd like to talk." No pressure, just conversation. That phrase, "no pressure," rang false in her ears. When someone leaves you for someone louder, colder, and more convenient, their attempts at humility after the fact never sound sincere. She didn't respond. He hadn't earned the right to speak to the woman she was now. 2 days later, she was walking into the same studio when she heard someone call her name. Brielle. It was Kaylin again. This time, he was holding a coffee. "Decaf or chaos?" he asked, offering her the cup. She took it with a smirk. "Chaos." "Always." They sat for a while, watching the team work. "You from here?" he asked. "Georgia, but not Atlanta. Grew up in Macon. I've been good people down there." She nodded. "My mother still lives there. She raised me on grit and grace." Kaylin leaned back. That shows. He didn't ask about Carlton, or why she looked familiar, or what the real story was. He asked nothing except what she wanted next. And for once, she didn't dodge the answer. "I want to build something that makes women feel seen," she said. "Something that moves, even when I'm not in the room." He nodded once. "Then build it." She looked at him. Simple, no performance. Just a quiet man who believed what she said without needing it to serve him. That night, she wrote down his name on a small sticky note and placed it inside her journal. No heart, no initials, just a name. Because she wasn't rushing anything. She wasn't trying to fill a space. She was learning how to be again, and maybe, later, how to choose again. But for now, she'd keep showing up for herself. And Kaylin, if he kept showing up like this, slow, steady, solid, she'd keep the door open. Just a little. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself from scratch, while the people who broke you kept watching? Maybe you didn't have millions. Maybe you didn't have backup. But you had your name. And when that's all you have sometimes, that's all you need. If you've ever chosen peace over proving a point, drop a comment, tap like. Share this story with someone who forgot how powerful quiet resilience can be. And don't forget to subscribe, because Brielle's just getting started. Brielle never intended to go viral, but she wasn't shocked when it happened. A journalist from a digital lifestyle magazine messaged her on LinkedIn, the kind of platform she barely used anymore. The subject read, "We'd love to spotlight your recent brand work, especially your minimalist marketing tour." She ignored it at first. Then a second message came in, shorter, more personal. "What you did with that? 10K brand. Quiet genius." Brielle clicked on the editor's name, skimmed her profile, then replied with a single line, "I'm open to talking, but I don't do drama stories." The editor replied in minutes. No scandal, just impact. 2 weeks later, the article dropped. Title: From CEO's Wife to Quiet Mogul, The Rise of Brielle Knox. The feature was clean, respectful, no mention of Carlton, no backhanded framing. It focused on the results, the brands she'd elevated, the simple systems she used, the power of voice-first strategy. The piece ended with a line that made her pause. She may not chase the spotlight, but now the spotlight follows her. Within 48 hours, the article was reposted over 4,000 times, not just on beauty pages, but founder groups, corporate women's forums, startup investor feeds. People weren't just seeing her, they were looking for her. By Monday, her inbox had changed. 4 podcast invites, 2 panel requests, 1 brand accelerator asking if she'd like to partner, and a message from a woman in Chicago that read, "I almost quit my business last month. Then I saw your article. I'm giving myself 1 more year. Thank you." Brielle didn't cry this time. She sat still. She moved into a larger Kio, working space downtown. Glass doors, natural light, whiteboards everywhere. She brought in 2 freelance assistants, 1 for scheduling, 1 for light design work. Both women, both recommended by other women. She didn't build a team with titles. She built with alignment. Every hire had to believe in the work, not just the hype. She started crafting her agency deck. Clear services, direct language, no buzzword fluff. At the top, she wrote, "We build quiet power, brands that speak before they shout." The deck made its way around without her knowing. One day, she got a call from a tech founder in Brooklyn. "I've had 5 people pitch me big agencies," he said. "But I don't want big. I want clean. I want calm. I want the woman who flipped a 10K brand in 90 days. That afternoon, Kaylin called. Not a text, not a DM, a full call. "Too much to say through thumbs," he said when she answered. She smiled. He asked how the article felt. "Odd," she admitted. "Like being seen in a room I didn't ask to walk into." He paused. "You earned that room." They talked for 40 minutes, about nothing, about everything. He told her about a community development project he'd pitched to the city. She told him about a new client in New Orleans and how she was testing a new messaging framework. He didn't ask for details. He didn't ask for her time. But before they hung up, he said, "Let me know if you need a second set of eyes. I won't overstep. Respect." Again, she hung up thinking, what a concept. A man who doesn't try to prove he deserves space in your life. He just shows up and earns it. That weekend, she spoke on her first panel. It was a small women in business event. 40 chairs, folding table, no cameras. Perfect. When she stepped up to the mic, she wore black slacks, a simple blazer, and her natural hair pulled back. Nothing flashy, but every eye was on her. Not because she demanded it, but because she carried presence. She talked about clarity over perfection, story over spin, voice over volume. After her session, 3 women waited to speak to her, not to praise, but to ask how they could be real and still win. Brielle stayed for an hour, not because she had to, because she wanted to. The next day, she went back to the co-working space early. Still dark outside, She sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and wrote one line in her journal. "I don't want to be loud. I want to be heard." And for the first time since she left Carlton, she realized she didn't miss his world. Not the fundraisers, not the invitations, not the pressure to be perfect beside a man whose eyes had stopped seeing her. Her life now? It wasn't quieter. It was finally honest. The conference had over 300 attendees. A mix of founders, investors, and a few polished influencer CEOs Brielle would have avoided 5 months ago. But this wasn't about clout. It was about opportunity. She had been invited to speak on a midday panel, Scaling Soulfully. How purpose drives profit. Brielle didn't dress like the others. No branded jumpsuit, no neon heels, no styled hair slicked for the stage, just an ivory blouse, wide leg pants, and flat brown sandals. Clean. Present. Unapologetically still her. The panel began. 3 other women spoke first. Their stories were powerful, some polished, some messy, all earned. Then the moderator turned to her. "Brielle, your name has come up a lot lately. Quiet power, they're calling it. What would you say started it all?" She held the mic, calm as ever. "I didn't start with power," she said. "I started with betrayal." The room went silent. But betrayal didn't break me. It reminded me what my name was worth when I stopped attaching it to someone else's. Murmurs. A few gasps. One clap. Then more. But Brielle didn't perform. She spoke, then passed the mic. Nothing extra. No show. After the panel, a line formed. A few women wanted selfies. Some wanted advice. One quietly whispered, "I left him last week. Thank you for standing in front of us." Brielle placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "I see you." And she meant it. She was packing her things near the exit when she saw him. Carlton. Not a headline, not an email signature. Him. In the flesh. He wasn't in a tailored suit, just a blazer over a black tee. Subtle. Intentional. He came alone. No Talon in sight. His face was calm but not unreadable. Brielle's chest didn't tighten. Her hands didn't shake. She looked at him the way you look at someone who once knew your favorite coffee order, irrelevant now. He walked over slowly. "Didn't think I'd run into you here," he said. "You didn't. You showed up," she replied, voice even. Carlton gave a soft smile, like the kind you offer when trying to disarm a dog you once kicked. "I read the article," he said. She didn't respond. "You've built something real." "I always had it in me," she said. "You were just too distracted to notice." He paused. "I wasn't in a good place." "You were in the exact place you wanted to be," she corrected. "You just didn't think I'd walk away without begging." He didn't argue. He didn't deny it. That silence, for once, was the truth. "I didn't come to cause problems," he said. "I came to say, you're doing good. And I respect it." Brielle looked at him for a long moment. "Respect looks like staying out of my way," she said. And with that, she turned. No pause. No extra energy wasted. He didn't follow her. He didn't call her name. Because this time, she was walking away not out of pain, but power. Back in her room, she didn't cry. She played Solange, took a long shower, answered 3 emails from new clients, then made dinner reservations for one. She went out, ate slowly, drank water with lemon, and toasted herself with her eyes in the mirror behind the bar. She didn't need validation, but it still felt good knowing she didn't fold. The next morning, she got a text from Kaylin. "Kaylin, conference done? Hope you reminded them who you are." Brielle didn't have to. They already knew. That afternoon, Kaylin sent her a video from a local non-profit event where he'd spoken on sustainable design. At the end of the video, he mentioned her name. "I work with people who build with care, like Brielle Knox. If you don't know her work, you will soon." No tag, no promo. Just mention soft power, recognizing soft power. She watched the clip 3 times, smiled once, then got back to work, because being seen was nice, but being solid, that was everything. 3 months into her new rhythm, Brielle began turning down more clients than she accepted. She had limits now, clear ones. She didn't work with brands that chased trends, didn't do urgent rebrands from founders in panic mode, didn't accept anyone who used phrases like "make it go viral" or "sprinkle some magic." She worked with builders, people who knew growth was earned, not manufactured. And her name? It was starting to mean something. Without paid press, without Carlton, without scandal. One Friday morning, while she was reviewing onboarding documents for a new health startup out of Oakland, her assistant knocked on her office door. "You got a box." "From who?" "No label. Hand delivered." Brielle raised an eyebrow but stood up and walked to the front desk. A square, matte black box sat there. No logo. Just a cream card on top. She picked it up, opened it slowly. Inside, a leather-bound book and a handwritten note. "We've been following your work. Quiet strength like yours is rare in our space. We'd like to meet, privately. If the feeling is mutual, contact our executive office and ask for Avery. S." She flipped the card over, nothing else. She opened the leather book. Inside was a detailed case study on a global luxury brand. No cheap packaging, no fluff, real numbers, real vision. It wasn't just a pitch. It was proof that someone had studied her, knew her pace, knew she didn't like noise, and still wanted her voice. She held the book in her hands for a long time. She didn't move, didn't rush to respond. She let the moment sit. Because there was no need to jump. People used to say she was lucky to be Carlton Vane's wife. Now they were courting her. Quietly. And that was a different kind of power. Later that day she called the number. The voice that answered was calm, clear. "Executive office. This is Brielle Knox. I was told to ask for Avery." One moment. Then a brief hold, followed by a new voice. "Miss Knox. I was hoping you'd call." The conversation was short. Avery explained that a high-level brand campaign was about to undergo a full revamp. They didn't want loud. They didn't want flashy. They wanted thoughtful, scalable, grounded. They wanted her. No audition. No pitch deck. They'd already read everything she'd ever published online. The offer: lead the creative strategy on a 6-month campaign for a brand she'd once dreamed of working with. Back when she was still Carlton's shadow. Back when Talon said she was too nice to lead. The kind of brand that didn't blink twice at $200,000 retainers. Now they were reaching for her. On her terms. She didn't say yes immediately. She told them she needed time to consider how it would fit her current client schedule. And she meant it. Because success wasn't just about being seen. It was about protecting the piece she'd built brick by quiet brick. That night, she walked through Piedmont Park at sunset. No music. Just air. Just quiet. She sat on a bench and opened her journal. What would this require of me? That was the only question she wrote. She sat with it. Not because she doubted her ability, but because she respected her own time now. Her phone buzzed. Kaylin. Kaylin. Heavy day. Brielle. Surreal. I'll explain later. Kaylin, I'm off tomorrow. Come to the gardens with me. No pressure. No pressure. She liked how he said that and meant it. Not like Carlton, who used it as a disguise for manipulation. But Kaylin? The next morning, they walked side by side through the botanical garden. He didn't ask questions at first, just handed her a lemon drink from the cafe and said, I don't need answers, but if you want to talk, I'll listen. She told him about the offer, about the box, about what it stirred in her. He didn't flinch, didn't say, you should do it, didn't say, you're crazy if you don't. He simply said, whatever choice keeps your peace is the right one. She looked over at him, really looked. Sunlight kissed his cheekbones. His shirt was half wrinkled like he hadn't cared to impress. That too was power, presence without performance. They sat by a fountain after. A long pause stretched between them. He turned to her and said, you ever think maybe all of this, everything you went through, wasn't the breakdown but the preparation? She exhaled. not out of sadness, but release. When she got back to her suite that night, she opened her laptop and typed the reply. Subject, RE, invitation to lead message. I've reviewed the materials. I appreciate the intentionality. I don't move fast for show, but I move with care. And when I say yes, it's full. Let's set up the first creative call. BK. She didn't attach a resume. Didn't pitch her worth. They already knew. Now they were just trying to keep up. The office was sleek. Glass walls, concrete floors, a curated bookshelf with titles like Designing for Emotion and the Power of Simplicity. Brielle sat at the head of a long walnut table, 12 seats, all filled. The campaign kickoff for one of the biggest luxury heritage brands in the US, and she was leading it. No creative director beside her, no pitch partner, just her, the one they once overlooked, the one they thought was too quiet, too polished, too slow to shine. Now, she was the lead voice in a room full of executives, and they were leaning in. She clicked the first slide. No dramatic animation, no corporate fluff. Just bold white text on a clean black background. We don't need to shout. We need to connect. Silence, then nods. She didn't start with strategy jargon. She started with emotion. She talked about identity fatigue, consumer trust, brand warmth. Then, she pulled up side-by-side visuals from her last client, before and after, context and clarity, and then finally results, actual sales numbers, organic growth, proof, not posturing. Halfway through, a VP raised his hand. This isn't how our past agencies presented. It feels, he paused, personal. Brielle didn't blink, because the consumer isn't a robot, and neither are you. A chuckle, light tension released. By the time she reached the last slide, no one checked their phones. When she finished, someone clapped. Then everyone did. One of the execs leaned forward. We've needed this, and she knew they meant more than strategy. They meant clarity, conviction, depth, and she brought all three, wrapped in poise. As the team dispersed for coffee and calls, Brielle packed up her laptop slowly. She wasn't in a rush. She moved with the weight of someone who belonged. But as she slipped her journal into her tote, she saw him. Through the glass door, standing off to the side of the open lobby, Carlton, again, this time in a charcoal grey coat, collar turned up, expression unreadable. He didn't move, didn't approach, just watched. She didn't break eye contact, didn't flinch. She zipped her bag and walked out through the other exit. Because some people don't deserve a second audience, especially when they didn't respect the first one. Outside, the city was loud, but Brielle wasn't. She took the long way to her car, stopped for a juice, checked in with her assistant, sent a check-in text to the fragrance brand in Houston, and when her phone buzzed again, she ignored it. She knew it was Carlton. Knew the pattern. Every time she rose, he reappeared, as if his presence could take credit for the foundation he never helped lay. She was done letting him circle. This wasn't orbit. This was flight, and she was soaring now. That evening, she called Kalen. His voice was easy, warm. She told him about the presentation. He asked, how'd it feel? Like walking into a room that used to feel like a wall. He didn't interrupt. She kept going, and he was there. Pause. Carlton? Back of the room. Didn't say a word, just watched. Kalen's voice didn't change. And I walked out the other door. He exhaled slowly. You didn't need him to see you. No, she said. But part of me wanted him to know he doesn't matter anymore. He probably does now more than ever. That's the irony. Silence again. Then Kalen said, want to take a walk tomorrow evening? Just air. Nothing deep. Brielle smiled. Air sounds perfect. She hung up and opened her notes app. Typed, power isn't being seen by the ones who left. Power is knowing you no longer need their eyes. She didn't post it, didn't caption it. She just saved it for herself. Because sometimes you don't need the applause. Sometimes the silence is your loudest win. Brielle had never planned to run a team. She liked her pace. She liked working lean. But growth doesn't always ask for permission. Sometimes it shows up in the form of too many requests, too many opportunities, and not enough hands. It was time. Her assistant, Morgan, brought it up gently one afternoon as they reviewed campaign rollout dates. "You said yes to 2 more clients last week," Morgan said. "You sure you don't want help with execution?" Brielle looked up. "You offering?" "I'm offering to help you stop pretending you can do everything by yourself." Brielle laughed softly. "All right, let's talk structure." By the end of that week, she had 3 job postings drafted. When Brand Strategy Associate and Project Coordinator, Untant Systems Lead. She only posted them to 2 platforms. No flashy call-outs. No "we're changing the world" promises. Just clean descriptions, clear pay, flexible hours, respectful tone. She received 216 applications in 3 days. And they weren't generic. They were thoughtful. Some were from women who had followed her since the article. One line stood out in particular from a candidate in Chicago. "I'm not applying because of who you work with. I'm applying because of how you work. It feels like there's room for people like me to breathe here." Brielle sat with that line for a moment. That's what she was building, a room to breathe. She brought on all 3 roles by the end of the 2nd week. No fanfare. Just onboarding calls, one-on-ones, and voice memos filled with intention. She didn't call them employees. She called them partners in clarity. And every woman who joined brought something Brielle didn't know she needed until it arrived. Order, patience, structure. She wasn't just running an agency anymore. She was shaping an ecosystem. Her new workspace was quiet the first morning they all showed up. No chaos, no fake excitement. Just coffee, laptops, and energy that felt solid. At noon, someone ordered lunch. At 3 p.m., they broke into a brainstorm without being told. And Brielle watched it all unfold from her desk, in her name, under her rhythm, with her values stitched into the seams. No one asked for permission to lead. They just did. Because the culture was clear: bring your whole self, or don't bring anything at all. That same week, she got a call from a boutique VC firm. They weren't pitching money. They were offering space, a full floor in a downtown building, discounted rent, flexible lease, press opportunities attached. But there was a catch. They wanted naming rights on her agency. "Brielle, we see where you're going. We just think the name should reflect scale, something a little less personal." She didn't answer right away. She thanked them, told them she'd think on it, hung up, then sat in silence, not upset, not confused, just clear. That evening, she called Kalen, told him everything. His response was short. "Why would you give away the name you rebuilt your life on?" She exhaled. "I knew you'd say that. Because it's true. They're offering visibility." He paused. "You already have it. You've just been too focused to notice." Brielle smiled. Kalen always had a way of saying the thing she was already thinking, but hadn't yet said out loud. The next morning, she wrote back to the VC firm. Her reply was 2 sentences. "Thank you for the offer. But the name stays." No long explanation, no justification. Because when your name is the proof, you don't need to explain your protection of it. Later that afternoon, her team celebrated their first full campaign as a unit. A clean skincare brand launched its new collection with a message that echoed everything Brielle stood for. Your skin doesn't need a miracle. It needs consistency. Sales doubled in 48 hours. The founder cried during their post-launch Zoom. "I've never felt seen like this," she whispered. Brielle held the moment close. Because that was the point. Not the accolades, not the praise, the impact. Brielle wasn't the type to check who copied her. She didn't need to. She focused on depth, not noise. But the email came anyway. Subject: saw this and thought of you. Attached was a screenshot. A newly launched brand accelerator site from someone she didn't know. A glossy landing page. Carefully selected fonts, neutral tones, language that felt eerily familiar, too familiar, phrases pulled directly from her agency deck, slide headers she had coined herself, lines like, "Build before you broadcast." Structure isn't strategy. Story is. Clarity is the new authority, all hers, now lightly rearranged on someone else's homepage. She closed the laptop, not out of anger, but because she didn't need to absorb that kind of energy. She didn't believe in chasing imitation. She believed in staying ahead by staying original. Still, she scribbled one line in her journal before stepping away. They can borrow the words, but not the weight behind them. Later that evening, Morgan brought it up gently. "You saw that page?" Brielle nodded. Morgan hesitated. "You want me to reach out? A legal draft, maybe?" "No," Brielle said. "We don't operate from defense. We build forward." Morgan smiled, noted, then added, "Still, it's wild. You're the blueprint now." Brielle didn't answer right away, but she felt something shift. Not pride, not ego, just confirmation. She had become the reference, not the echo. The next day, a student from Spelman messaged her, a junior, branding major, soft tone. "Hi, MS Knox. I don't have anything to pitch. I just wanted to say thank you. Your story helped me stop watering down my ideas in class." That one hit deeper than the copycat. Because influence isn't measured by who mimics you. It's measured by who finds courage through you. That same week, one of her earlier clients, the original $10,000 hair care brand, reached out again. They were expanding into retail. Target had called. The founder asked if Brielle would come with her to the pitch, not to present, not to speak, just to be in the room. "I feel braver when you're around," she'd said. Brielle showed up the next morning in a navy blue wrap dress and block heels, sleek, grounded, no need for high polish. She watched the founder deliver her pitch flawlessly. When the target buyer nodded and said, "You're clearly ready," Brielle smiled quietly to herself. Because she wasn't the star. She was the root. And that was more powerful than any spotlight. After the pitch, they walked outside together. The founder turned to her and said, "Do you know what you gave me?" Brielle raised a brow. "What?" "Language. I didn't know how to talk about my brand until you taught me how to believe in it." Brielle touched her arm. "You already had the story," she said. "I just helped you hear it." That evening, she took a slow walk through her old neighborhood. Not to reminisce, to remind herself how far she'd come. She passed the street she used to take when she was still Carlton's wife, still silencing her brilliance so he could speak first. She no longer needed to shrink. Not for business, not for love, not for anything. When she got home, she made tea, sat at her window, watched the city breathe, then opened her laptop and typed a new headline into a pitch deck she'd been building for something bigger. "Coming Home to Your Voice, a masterclass in brand clarity for women who build it," wasn't a course. Not yet. It was a concept, one she'd avoided for months. She didn't want to be a guru, didn't want to teach for fame, but something had shifted. The DMs, the women, the young designers mimicking her tone without understanding the weight behind her restraint. Maybe it was time to create a space to show what real clarity looked like. Not trendy, not curated, just truthful. She shared the idea with her team the next morning. Morgan's face lit up. "You sure you're ready to lead out loud?" Brielle smiled. "I'm not chasing visibility. I'm responding to the responsibility." That night, Kalen called while prepping dinner. "You've been quiet today," he said. "I've been planning." "Dangerous," he joked. She laughed. Then she told him about the new direction, the possible masterclass, the bigger platform. He listened, then said, "You'll do it right, because you won't make it about you." That was the part that made her pause, because he was right. Her strength wasn't in the brand she built. It was in how she didn't center herself in it. She centered the work, the truth, the clarity. She ended the day writing one sentence in her journal: "They'll try to copy your style. until they realize it came from your substance. The event was called the Found Her Forum, a full-day summit dedicated to women who build, lead, and scale brands with purpose. It wasn't just panels and breakout sessions. It was the kind of space where people came to listen, not perform. 300 women. No corporate egos. No step-and-repeat banners. Just intention. Brielle had been asked to lead the closing keynote. 30 minutes. No script required. The topic? Clarity over noise. Building without losing yourself. When they first emailed her, she nearly said no, not because she wasn't ready, but because she hadn't spoken at anything this size since leaving Carlton, and this would be the first time she wasn't being introduced as someone's wife or someone's ex. Just Brielle. But that was the point, wasn't it? To own her story. To use it, not hide it. The ballroom was minimalist. White chairs, wooden stage, soft lighting. The kind of setup that didn't demand energy, it held it. As the program director introduced her, Brielle stood in the wings, one hand resting lightly on her chest. Not to calm herself, just to feel the beat of her own presence. She stepped onto the stage with no slides, no notes, just herself, and when she looked out, the faces were ready. Curious, some already smiling, a few even tearing up before she said a word. I used to think clarity came after the chaos, she began, like it was a reward you earn once you push through. But what I've learned is, clarity is the push. It's what keeps you from building things you'll later regret. Silence, then nods. She didn't share the Carlton story directly, but she shared the part that mattered, about losing yourself while trying to stay digestible in someone else's success, about being a strategist with no title, doing work for a man who credited her only in private, about stepping away with nothing but a laptop and a name. I wasn't trying to go viral. I was just trying to prove to myself I could rebuild. She didn't fake emotion, didn't add dramatic pauses. But when she said, "My name used to be attached to someone else's ambition. Now it's attached to work I can stand beside with my whole chest," the room stood still. Some women clapped softly. One whispered, "Yes." Another wiped her cheek. Midway through, Brielle scanned the crowd. And there, 3 rows back, she saw her. Talon, sitting alone, no makeup, no posture of arrogance, just watching, still. Brielle didn't pause, didn't falter. She kept speaking. Your story is yours to own. Even if someone else tried to rewrite it, you can lose the house, the friend, the title, and still have everything you need if your name still holds weight. Talon didn't flinch, didn't look down, but Brielle wasn't saying it to her. She was saying it for the woman who had stayed too long in rooms where her voice wasn't welcome. She wrapped the keynote with one simple line: build slowly, but build with your name in every corner. Then stepped back. The room rose, not like a performance encore, like recognition, like respect. Backstage, one of the junior producers hugged her without asking. I needed that more than I even knew. Another woman handed Brielle a folded note. No name, just a sentence scribbled on it. I've been building from heartbreak too. Thank you for showing me it's not shameful to begin again. Brielle stepped outside for air. She didn't check her phone, didn't scroll. She just stood by the edge of the building, the breeze brushing past her cheeks. Until a familiar voice said, "That was bold." She turned. Talon stood 10 feet away, arms folded. "I wasn't expecting to see you here," Brielle said calmly. Talon shrugged. "Wasn't expecting to come. But someone forwarded me the event. Said I should listen." Brielle didn't reply. She didn't need to. Talon looked away, then back. "You said everything without saying my name." "That was the point," Brielle said. "This story was never about you, or him. It was about what I had to remember I already was." Talon stepped closer, then stopped. "You really built something." "I did," Brielle said, "without taking from anyone to do it." Silence. Then Talon nodded once. "I'll leave you alone." She turned to walk off. And Brielle let her. No parting words, no shade, No forgiveness ceremony, just peace. Sometimes that's the best ending. No scene, just closure. The day the masterclass launched, Brielle was the calmest person in the room. Her team hovered around her small office space, refreshing links, double-checking modules, prepping captions. Morgan paced once, then exhaled dramatically. You're way too chill for someone whose name is about to hit inboxes nationwide. Brielle smiled, sipping her ginger tea. That's because we didn't build this in a rush. We built it in truth. And that truth? It was already doing the heavy lifting. Coming home to your voice was simple. 5 video modules, a downloadable workbook, 1 live session. No drama, no promises of 6-figure branding success. Just one question, asked over and over. Are you building something you can stand beside? The entire masterclass felt like Brielle. Quiet, steady, focused. And by noon, it had already crossed 2,000 sign-ups. No paid ads, no affiliate links, just word of mouth, real voices sharing a real voice. The comments started rolling in by nightfall. Women from small towns, women who'd just quit, women still figuring out who they were without a ring or a title. This made me realize I've been hiding inside my own brand. I deleted my entire homepage after Module 1. Not out of panic, out of alignment. I've never felt seen by someone who never raised her voice. Brielle read each one slowly, not to soak in praise, but to witness how many women had been taught to doubt their own vision, unless someone louder validated it. She didn't reply to all the messages. She didn't repost them with highlight filters. She just kept showing up in the platform's live chat box, calm, consistent, answering questions, asking them right back. Because the goal wasn't to be worshipped. The goal was to be useful. The following week, a well-known media podcast reached out. They wanted to feature her in a segment titled, "The Strategist Who's Rewriting How Women Brand Power." She declined. Kindly, firmly. "I'm not interested in being a symbol," she told the producer. "I'm building systems." Her team expanded the course access window. Feedback had been overwhelming. And by week 3, the masterclass had crossed 7,000 sign-ups. But something else happened. A shift, not in her, but in the way others started speaking about the work. On a random Tuesday, a junior designer on Twitter posted, "I used to write brand copy that sounded like everyone else. Now I write like I mean it." Thank you, Brielle Knox. On Instagram, a Latina founder posted a reel. "I stopped pitching investors who didn't get my tone. Because Brielle reminded me, I don't need to shrink to scale." And in a Slack group Brielle didn't even know existed, someone had uploaded her quote, "Clarity doesn't chase attention. It earns trust." It had become a header in their team's brand doc. No credit tag. No ask. Just adopted, not stolen, respected, internalized. That's when she knew. This was bigger than her name. Her tone had become a reference point for how to move, how to build without breaking, how to lead without shouting, how to name yourself and never hand it over again. Morgan knocked on her door that Friday. "You've got mail, like real mail." Brielle opened the envelope and unfolded the note. "I cried in Module 3, but for the first time, not because I felt lost, because I finally felt seen. I'm naming my new studio by my own name. In your honor. Thank you for helping me come home to myself." There was no return address, no handle, just the note. Brielle pressed the paper to her chest and closed her eyes. She didn't build this for applause. She built it because too many women had been told their softness made them forgettable. But now, her softness was strategy. Her restraint was power. Her name, once ignored, now opened doors for women who'd been told to make themselves smaller. That evening, she walked out of her building and called Kaylin. She didn't lead with numbers. She didn't brag. She just said, "The work is working." Kaylin responded, "I never doubted it. You lead different. And that difference, it sticks." They walked in silence for a while, on the phone, but together. Finally, she asked, "How do you know when your work is enough?" He replied, "When it stops being about being seen, and starts being about who sees themselves better because of it. She smiled. Because that was exactly what she'd been feeling, and couldn't name. Before bed, she updated the welcome slide in her masterclass. She added one line at the bottom. This space was built by one name, so you could reclaim yours. Have you ever watched someone try to copy what you built, only to realize they could never copy why you built it? If you've ever rebuilt yourself from silence, if you've ever protected your peace louder than your pain, drop a comment, tap like. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that slow power is still power. And don't forget to subscribe, because Brielle's next move isn't just bold, it's hers. The email came in the middle of a quiet Thursday. Subject, book opportunity, major non-fiction imprint interested. It wasn't spam. It was from a respected publishing house. Big name, real credentials, a full acquisitions team copied in. Brielle sat at her desk, sipping a lemon mint tea, reading the proposal 3 times. They weren't asking for a meeting. They were offering a deal. 6 figures, a national release, podcasts, PR, a pre-launch tour, all tied to a single project, her story, but not just any version of it. Attached to the offer was a sample title they'd brainstormed internally, Building from the Betrayal. She closed the laptop without finishing the rest of the message, not out of offense, out of clarity. They had misunderstood the entire story. Morgan walked in with her phone in hand. You saw the email? Brielle nodded once. They're offering more than most people get on a debut, Morgan said carefully. I know. Morgan studied her. You don't look excited. Brielle looked up. Calm. Clear. I didn't build this to be remembered for what broke me. She didn't respond right away. She let it sit. Overnight. Through the weekend. Then she replied. Subject, RE, book opportunity message. Thank you for your interest. But I'm not interested in centering betrayal as the headline. I've already done the work. The healing, the rebuilding. I'm not writing about what hurt me. I'm writing about what I did after. If you're open to a different title and a different approach, I'd love to talk. Otherwise, I'll pass. The editor replied the same day. We're open. What did you have in mind? Brielle stared at the blinking cursor in the reply box for 10 seconds, then typed slowly, by her own name. The team asked for a pitch deck, a sample chapter. She delivered both in less than a week. The proposal wasn't flashy. It was clean, direct, laced with truth, not trauma. The opening chapter started like this. They tried to shrink me into the footnotes of someone else's story. I decided to write mine by hand. No ghostwriter, no filter, no headline built on pity. Just the full truth, written in my own tone. And that tone? It was always enough. They greenlit the deal 2 weeks later. Same advance, same launch window, new title. Her title, no marketing twist, no dramatic subtitle. Just by her own name, exactly as she asked. When the press release went live, Morgan read the headline out loud in the office. From quiet builder to published author, Brielle Knox to debut first book in fall, no mention of Carlton, no recycled scandal. Just the work, the clarity, the truth. Brielle kept the moment small. No champagne, no branded photo shoot. Just a team lunch, a hug from Morgan, and a voice note to Kaylin that simply said, I signed, and I'm proud. Not loud, just proud. That night, she sat by her window, opened a fresh notebook, and began writing the chapters in longhand, one by one. No ghostwriter, no dictated drafts, because this wasn't just a story. It was an offering to every woman who'd ever been asked to shrink, to every builder who'd ever been mistaken for support staff, to every quiet girl who carried gold in her bones but didn't have the room to say her own name out loud. Now, she had space, and she was using it well. Carlton found out through the trades. He wasn't tagged. No one warned him. He just opened his tablet one morning, scrolled through a business article, and there she was. Brielle Knox announces debut book by her own name. A quiet blueprint for building after being overlooked. There was no photo of them, no mention of his name, but he knew. He knew the weight of that title. He knew what it meant to be left out of a story where he used to be the entire setting. He didn't call, didn't text, not at first. He waited 4 days, then sent a short email. Subject, congratulations. I saw the announcement. You look at peace. I hope the book says everything you want it to. I wasn't good to you. I know that now. There's nothing I need from you. Just wanted you to know. I see it now. There was no signature, no company logo, no pitch, just 7 lines. Brielle read it once. Then again, she didn't feel anger. She didn't feel joy. She felt distance, the kind you only earn after walking so far from someone, their voice no longer echoes in your space. She didn't forward it to Morgan. She didn't ask Kaylin what to say. She simply closed the tab and whispered to herself, "That's for him, not for me." 3 days later, she got another email, this one from the editor. The pre-orders had crossed 8,000 before the campaign even launched. No influencer push, no email funnel, just people resonating with the tone and trusting her name. The editor said, "Your story is moving people, and you're doing it without making yourself the victim." That mattered, because Brielle had never wanted to be a warning. She wanted to be a reference. The book manuscript was almost done. She'd written every line herself. Early mornings, late nights, midday walks where the right phrase hit her chest like a truth she couldn't hold back. There was no ghostwriter hidden in the background, just her laptop, her journal, her voice. Some chapters were still hard, especially the one about stepping into the suite that first night after leaving, but she didn't write it to bleed. She wrote it to witness. Because power doesn't come from pretending the pain never happened. It comes from not letting it take the mic. She included one line in the final chapter that made her pause before typing it. Forgiveness doesn't always need to be spoken out loud. Sometimes it's the absence of bitterness in your next move. She didn't name Carlton. She didn't need to. A few weeks later, she ran into one of his former advisors at a private founders event. Older man, friendly enough, always polite to her, even back then. He approached slowly, drink in hand. "You're doing good, Brielle. Thank you." He hesitated, then said, "He reads everything, you know. Won't admit it. But he's watching." She nodded, lips pressed, then replied, "Some lessons you have to live with, not recover from." The man nodded. "Fair," and walked away. That night, Kaylin stopped by with Thai takeout and a new plant for her windowsill. He didn't ask for details, but she told him anyway. He emailed. Kaylin chewed slowly, then asked, "You respond?" "No." He nodded once. "You don't owe anyone closure that costs your peace." Brielle exhaled. "That's what I keep telling myself." Kaylin leaned back in the chair. "Then believe it. You're not running from anything anymore. And you're not trying to prove anything either." She looked over at him. "You always know what to say." He smiled. "That's why you keep letting me in." She went to bed that night and slept deeper than she had in years. No rehearsed comebacks in her dreams, no imagined confrontations. Just silence. Not the cold kind, the clean kind. The auditorium was full, not packed, not frantic, just full, with the right people. Brand founders, designers, storytellers, students, the ones who didn't chase fame, but cared deeply about how things felt. Brielle stood backstage in a tan, wide-leg jumpsuit and low heels. Nothing dramatic, just present, just herself. The book had officially launched 2 days earlier. By her own name was trending under women's non-fiction. Not because of press, because of group chats, because of screenshots shared in DMs, because of women who'd read chapter 2 and said, "This part, this is where I felt myself come back." She'd done a few podcasts, quiet ones, where she could speak, not perform. But this, a live book talk, moderated Q&A, open floor, this was the first time she was facing a room of strangers who now knew her name. Morgan stood beside her, checking her clipboard and softly whispering the order of events. Brielle wasn't nervous, but she was alert. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about what her presence unlocked in other people. The moderator, a well-known editor from a respected platform, introduced her with grace. She's not just a strategist. She's not just an author. She's a woman who reminded all of us that soft doesn't mean small, and silence doesn't mean absence. Please welcome Brielle Knox. Applause, but not loud. Intentional. Grounded. Brielle walked out with a soft smile and calm hands. She didn't raise her voice once during the talk, but every word landed like it was made of stone. She spoke about redefining success, about never again entering rooms where her tone had to shrink to fit, about the weight of choosing clarity over comfort. The crowd was still, locked in. Then came the audience questions. A few people asked about branding. One asked about the hardest chapter to write. Another asked how she managed not to burn out while building. Brielle answered all of them with care. Then the mic passed to a young woman in the 4th row. She stood up, visibly nervous, hands shaking slightly as she held the mic. "Hi," she said. I didn't plan to say anything, but I guess I just need to ask this." Brielle nodded gently. "Take your time." The woman blinked hard, like she was swallowing something thick in her throat. "How do you know when you're healed enough to stop protecting yourself and start trusting again?" The room went still. No one shifted. No one coughed. Even the moderator looked stunned. Because this wasn't about branding. This wasn't about business. This was something else. Something Brielle hadn't spoken aloud in public, not even once. She held the mic a little tighter, looked directly at the woman, and spoke slowly. "I don't think healing is about reaching a perfect place where you never flinch again. I think healing is about recognizing when your guard is a survival tactic and when it's a wall keeping good things out." Silence. I still check myself sometimes. I still pause before I let people all the way in. But the difference now is, I'm not acting from fear. I'm moving from memory, and I get to decide which memories matter. The young woman sat down slowly, tears in her eyes. Brielle added one more thing. "You don't have to be fully healed to be fully honest. Start there." The room exhaled, not loudly, but with depth. You could feel the release, because the question was raw, and the answer wasn't polished. It was human. After the talk, dozens of people approached her, not all to say thank you. Some just stood near her, silently, like they didn't want advice. They just wanted to witness someone who had done what they were still figuring out how to begin. Brielle didn't rush out. She stood in that space for almost an hour, until the lights dimmed and the chairs emptied. Then she walked out into the cool air. Outside, Kalen was waiting by the curb. He leaned against his car with 2 drinks in hand, one iced ginger, one sweet tea. She reached for the ginger without asking. He smiled, didn't even hesitate. "I knew you'd bring it," she said. They stood there for a long moment. Then he asked, "How'd it go?" She looked up at the night sky, then back at him. "I think I finally told the truth out loud." He nodded. "You've been living it. Now you've spoken it." She reached for the door handle, then paused. "You ever get tired of being the one who sees me clearly before I say anything?" He grinned. "Nope, I trained for this." She laughed softly, then got in, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like no part of herself had been left behind on that stage. She brought it all with her, and she was going home with more than she arrived with. Peace, truth, and her name, spoken with full breath, by her, in front of everyone. The email came from a luxury brand she'd once dreamed about. High-end, high visibility, historically out of reach for people who looked and sounded like her. The subject line was simple. Creative lead opportunity. We'd love to partner. Brielle read it once, twice, then closed her laptop and made herself a sandwich. She wasn't being passive. She was being present. Years ago, she would have replied in 5 minutes flat. Now, she didn't move from desperation or flattery. She moved when the timing and the terms respected what she'd built. When she finally opened the email again, she read every line with a quiet mind. They'd seen her book announcement, watched her masterclass, been deeply moved by her keynote at the Found Her Forum. They wanted her to lead the storytelling behind their new rebranding push. The campaign theme was luxury with a soul. She smiled, because 5 years ago they'd turned her down for an internship. No reply, no response. Now, they were offering her the creative helm. She didn't say yes immediately. She sent a calendar link and scheduled a discovery call, like she did with every client. At the top of the call, she laid it out clearly. If I step into this, I bring my tone, I bring my pace. I don't do rushed launches or diluted messaging. I don't sell perfection. I build trust. If you're asking for that, I'm listening. The brand rep didn't blink. We're not asking for fluff. We're asking for exactly what you've built your name on. They offered full creative control. Brielle took a weekend, slept, journaled, talked it through with Morgan, and, over coffee on Sunday morning, she called her mother, the same woman who picked up years ago when Brielle left everything behind. The phone barely rang once. "Hey, baby." Brielle smiled. They offered. Her mother didn't ask who. She asked, "What does your piece say?" That it's a yes. But not the kind that changes me. Then you already know. That Monday, Brielle emailed the brand. Subject, creative lead. My response, "Thank you for the offer. I'll lead the campaign under 3 non-negotiables. 1. I bring my full voice. 2. The pace respects clarity. 3. The messaging centers truth, not polished fantasy. If that works for you, I'll start next month." BK, their reply? "We've been waiting for a voice like yours. Consider this a green light." Her team cheered when she told them. Morgan whispered, "They're about to get Brielle Knox flavor and have no idea what they just signed up for." Brielle grinned. "They'll learn." But deep down, she knew they already had. Because no one reaches for you this directly unless they've studied how you move. The campaign kickoff was scheduled for the following month. Brielle didn't rush. She took 2 full weeks off before diving in. Not because she was tired, because she was aligned. Because she wasn't building from burnout. She was building from balance. She flew to Charleston. No meetings, no agenda, just water, books, stillness. Kaylin joined her for 2 days. No social posts, no announcements. They walked the pier in silence, sat in cafes, watched the wind move across the docks. One night, they sat outside under string lights, his hand resting lightly on hers. "You're different now," he said. Brielle looked over. "Good different?" "Rooted." She nodded. "That's the only kind I want to be." When she returned to Atlanta, the first thing she did was print the campaign. Theme out on cardstock and tape it to her wall. Luxury with a soul. Under it, she wrote in pen, "No louder than necessary, no quieter than honest." The first internal campaign meeting was held in a glass-walled conference room on the 21st floor of a downtown building that smelled like polished stone and tension. Everyone wore layers of confidence and credentials, legacy executives, agency veterans, a few high-profile consultants who had been with the brand for decades. Then there was Brielle, soft blouse, no flashy slides, just her journal, a black pen, and a stillness that didn't beg to be noticed. But when the lead executive stood to open the meeting, the tone was off. She felt it instantly. Too corporate, too polished, all aesthetics, no substance. "We've reviewed the first draft of your messaging framework," said Victor Langley, SVP of Global Brand Direction. White hair, expensive watch, well-rehearsed voice. He flipped through the printed deck, as if looking for flaws he'd already decided existed. "I think it's elegant, but we may want to tighten some of the emotional tone. We don't want consumers to feel like we're trying too hard to connect." Brielle didn't speak right away. She never filled silence just to sound smart. She let the discomfort bloom, then looked up. "Why don't we want to connect?" Victor shifted. "I mean, of course we want connection, but we also want to maintain the prestige." Brielle smiled. Not warmly. The kind of prestige that feels unreachable, or the kind that people feel proud to stand beside. Silence. Someone cleared their throat. Victor leaned back. We've just never used this kind of tone before. And what results has your old tone been giving you? She asked gently, not accusing, but not softening either. More silence. A younger exec glanced down at the table. Another scribbled something nervously in her notebook. Brielle kept going. This brand says it wants soul. That requires risk. That requires intimacy. You don't get both distance and depth. You have to choose. Morgan, sitting quietly 2 seats over, looked up with pride in her eyes. Brielle wasn't performing. She was teaching. And the room was learning. Victor forced a half smile. We're just used to more traditional messaging. Brielle nodded once. Tradition is what got you here. But soul is what will carry you forward. She closed her journal. I was hired to lead, not to echo. And just like that, she stood. Calmly. We can revisit next week. Once the team's ready to move forward with clarity, not comfort, she turned to Morgan. Let's go. Morgan stood immediately. And together, they walked out of the room. Not fast, not shaken, just done. They didn't speak until they reached the elevator. Morgan hit the button. That was flawless. I wasn't going to argue with a man who already made up his mind. I came to shift the room, not wrestle with it. Morgan grinned. You shifted it all right. The next morning, Brielle received an email. Subject: follow-up from leadership from the CEO. Short, direct. Heard about yesterday. Thank you for holding your ground. We didn't bring you in to blend in. We brought you in to lead. Attached was a calendar invite. One-on-one with the CEO. The meeting was different. It was in a small office. No entourage. Just Brielle, a chair, and a man who understood when to speak and when to listen. I built this company 30 years ago, he said, hands folded. And I realized the voice I gave it back then doesn't fit anymore. He looked at her with sharp clarity. I don't just want the work. I want your tone in the roots. Brielle let the words sit, then replied. Then we start from the ground up. No shortcuts. Do what you do, he said. I trust it. She walked out of that meeting not relieved, but reaffirmed. There was no need to question what she'd said in the boardroom. She didn't perform. She didn't persuade. She told the truth and waited for the room to catch up. And they did. 2 weeks later, the campaign went live. Not with fireworks, not with a press dinner. It started with a 3-minute video. Just a woman, no music, no filters, sitting on a stool, looking directly at the camera. I don't have the perfect words, she said, but I have something honest, my story, my skin, my truth. There was no logo in the corner, no slogan hovering, just a quiet pulse of realness. Then she said something that hit. The first time I realized I was beautiful, I was alone. But I don't want the next girl to learn it in silence. And that was it. Fade to black. The brand name appeared in soft grey at the bottom. One line under it. This isn't a campaign. This is us catching up. The video wasn't boosted. No influencers were paid. Yet by morning, it had already been shared 12,000 times. Not reposted. Shared. Because it said something people wanted to say but never found the words. In the next 48 hours, a teacher in Oakland played it for her 7th grade girls group. A beauty editor wrote a 5-paragraph review, calling it the most honest piece of beauty branding in the last decade. A mother in Birmingham DM'd the company saying, "My daughter asked me if we could be part of something like this." Inside the agency, the energy shifted. Executives who once played safe now wanted bold. Copywriters started pushing boundaries. Designers pulled deeper colors. And the CEO? He showed up to a press conference with no tie and said publicly, "We owe this shift to one voice." Her name is Brielle Knox. But it wasn't the spotlight that moved Brielle. It was a sticky note, found on her office door the next Monday morning, in barely legible handwriting. "Thank you for making us feel seen. Intern, J." It wasn't signed with a full name, but she knew who it was. Jada, the intern who never spoke up in meetings. who always stayed behind after Zooms ended, just listening to how Brielle answered questions. That note said more than the headlines ever could. Later that afternoon, Jada knocked softly and stepped into Brielle's office. "I didn't mean to—" "You don't need to explain," Brielle said gently. "Come in." Jada sat across from her, twisting a silver ring on her finger. "I just wanted to say it out loud." Brielle tilted her head. "You changed the way I look at myself. I didn't think someone like me would belong here. But now, I want to lead someday." She exhaled shakily. "And I want to do it the way you do it." Brielle closed her laptop. "You want to know a secret?" Jada nodded. "I didn't think I belonged here either. Not at first. But the difference is, I didn't let that stop me from acting like I did." Jada blinked. "I wasn't waiting for permission to matter," Brielle added. "I decided I did." When Jada left the office, she walked taller. She wasn't just an intern anymore. She was a witness to what grace, grit, and clarity could look like when owned fully. Morgan popped in after. "They want to submit the campaign for an award." Brielle looked up. "Which one?" "All of them." A week later, Brielle got an invite to speak at a national brand summit. Not on marketing, not on strategy, on voice. The topic? Building a brand that sounds like truth. She texted her mom, then closed her eyes for a long moment. Because this wasn't just about success. This was about being heard. And every door that once shut in her face now wanted her to lead the room. That night, while reviewing her summit notes, she saw the date. It had been a year, a full year since Carlton's betrayal, since the day she walked out of that house and decided she would never let someone else's lies shrink her truth again. And now? Her voice was shifting boardrooms. Her truth was shaping ads. Her presence was building something she didn't even have a name for yet. Legacy, maybe. Or something more subtle. Respect. And then, her phone lit up. Unknown number. She debated, then picked up. "Hello?" "Brielle," the voice said. Deep, familiar. "Carlton." She didn't speak. "I saw the campaign," he said quietly. Still, she said nothing. "I just needed you to know. It moved me. You moved me." Still silence. "I was wrong. About everything." Pause. "And Talon?" "She's gone." Brielle raised her eyebrows. "Gone as in—" "She left. Said I wasn't who she thought. That I kept looking back." He exhaled. "She was right." Brielle finally spoke. "Carlton." "Yes. I'm not mad at you anymore." He stilled. "But I also don't owe you anything." "I know. And I won't shrink so you feel tall." "I know that too." She paused. "I wish you peace." And ended the call. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just sat quietly for a moment, then turned back to her speech draft. Her pen moved again. And this time, she wrote without looking back. Brielle adjusted the mic clip to her collar. The auditorium lights dimmed, leaving only one spotlight glowing over the stage. Her hands rested calmly on the glass podium, but her heart beat steady and firm. She scanned the room. Over 700 people in attendance. Another 1,200 watching virtually. The Brand Equity Summit had never given the closing keynote to someone who didn't come from one of the big four. Until now. Until her. She took a breath. Not to calm herself. To honor what it meant. Then she spoke. Most people assume that finding your voice means speaking louder. She let that settle. But I've learned that sometimes it's about speaking clearer. 15 minutes in, the audience was leaning in. No graphics. No flashy transitions, just words that hit where people lived. She told the story of rejection, of building when no one was clapping, of how truth sells more than polish, and how people don't want to be impressed anymore. They want to be seen. When she finished, the room rose. Not instantly, but slowly, like a wave that couldn't help but build. Not because she asked for applause, but because she made people feel something that would follow them out the door. Backstage, Morgan was waiting with damp eyes and an overstuffed tote. "You didn't just speak," she said. "You shifted the whole room." Brielle smiled softly. I spoke how I needed to hear it 5 years ago. A summit organizer approached. Someone's waiting for you in the speaker lounge. Said he knew you back in Chicago. Brielle's brows lifted slightly. She followed the woman down the hall. The man stood when she walked in. Salt and pepper beard, navy sweater, brown Oxfords. He extended a hand. Brielle Knox? Yes. I'm Thomas Langston, Chief Strategy Officer, Dunmore Brands. She blinked. That name, Dunmore, was familiar. Top 3 holding company in the country. Owned dozens of mid to high scale personal care and lifestyle companies. He gestured to a seat. I won't take much of your time. Go ahead. We've been following your campaign, he said. Quietly, but consistently. The clarity, the impact, the growth curve. She waited. We want to bring you in. Full leadership. Not just as creative director, not even CMO. He paused. We want you to helm our next acquisition and name your team. Brielle leaned back slightly. Why now? Because we believe you're not just building messaging, you're shaping movement. And our future needs more of that. He reached into his folder and handed her a file. This is our initial package. Review it. Think about it. No pressure. She didn't reach for the file right away. Instead, she said calmly, I started my firm with one client. No guarantees. Just a story and a truth I wouldn't let die. Langston nodded. And now you're the story people want to follow. When he left, she finally opened the folder. Equity, autonomy, a 7-figure baseline plus brand profit shares, full licensing rights for campaigns developed under her creative lead. Morgan peeked over her shoulder. Is this for real? It is. That evening, Brielle sat on her apartment balcony. The Los Angeles skyline flickered. Her tea had gone cold, but she was warm, not from the lights, but from the stillness. The clarity, everything she built, was hers. No shortcuts, no handouts. Just one truth, told without apology. Her phone buzzed. A FaceTime request from her mom. She picked up. Mama. Baby, I saw that speech. Brielle smiled. You watched the live stream? I recorded it. Twice. They both laughed. Her mom's voice softened. Your grandma would have been proud. I hope so. No, baby, I know so. The next morning, a bouquet arrived. White peonies and deep red ranunculus. No card. She placed them on the windowsill. They made no promises, no declarations. Just beauty for beauty's sake. Later that week, she returned to the agency. She could have taken a week off. She didn't. Legacy didn't wait. She walked past the branding wall with quiet pride. The same one where her name was once left off the founding credits. Now carried her initials in a golden monogram. BK. Jada stopped her near the elevator. They're naming a scholarship after you. Brielle raised an eyebrow. The Design Academy downtown. The board voted yesterday. Jada showed her the site mock-up. The Brielle Knox Foundation for Creative Girls. It wasn't just the name. It was the mission. To fund ideas before the world believes in them. As Brielle stepped into the elevator, she whispered a quiet thank you to herself. Not because she made it, but because she never stopped making. The event was casual, low-lit, and intentionally intimate. A small branding mixer hosted at a rooftop in Silver Lake. Brielle almost skipped it. But Morgan convinced her to go. It's not about networking anymore, she'd said. It's about presence. So Brielle showed up, in a deep green satin blouse, wide-leg trousers, and gold earrings her mother. Mailed last month with a handwritten note, wear these when you feel full. She moved through the space with ease. People now greeted her like they already knew her, not just by name, but by work, by impact. One woman approached with teary eyes. You don't know me, but your story got me out of a job I hated and into my first design internship. They hugged, briefly, firmly. Brielle didn't need to post it. She felt it. That was enough. She was just about to leave when she saw him. Across the rooftop, leaning against the railing, alone. Carlton, no entourage, no flashy suit, No friend clinging to his side like before. Just him. Older. Still sharp, but somehow smaller. He saw her the same moment she saw him. Their eyes locked. She didn't look away. She walked over. Calm. Whole. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said simply. He gave a dry smile. "Didn't expect to be here either." He looked at her. Not through her. Not around her. At her. "You look strong." "I am." They stood in silence for a moment. Not awkward. Just finished. He cleared his throat. "I watched your keynote. Oh, you made people believe again." "Not my job to make people believe," she said. "Just to speak what's true." He nodded. "I was wrong, Brielle." She held his gaze. "I know." He took a breath like he might say more, but didn't. He reached into his jacket and handed her a small white envelope. No drama, just a repayment. She opened it later. It was a check. $10,000. The same amount she once gave him, when she believed in a future they'd both benefit from. The money he used to rent a studio and start a company with someone else, now returned. Late, but clean. Back at her office the next week, Brielle framed the check, not for the amount, but for the proof that some circles do close, not with revenge but with release. She hung it in the conference room, right above a plaque that read, "Growth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it signs its name." 2 months passed. The Dunmore deal was in its final phase. Her team had grown. She'd brought in 3 women from underfunded creative programs and given them full benefits and leadership tracks. One of them, Layla, asked her over lunch, "Do you ever think about what your life would have looked like if things went differently back then?" Brielle smiled. "Sometimes. But I'm not sure it would have been better. Just quieter, safer, less me." Late one night, as she was reviewing campaign proofs, her phone buzzed. An email. Subject, private commission inquiry. She almost archived it. Then she saw the sender, Kaylin Miles. She clicked it open. It was short, professional, direct. "Hi, Brielle. I saw the campaign you did with Solace Brands. Brilliant positioning. I'm quietly backing a new platform for small Black-owned health and wellness brands and looking for someone to lead visual storytelling and strategy. Would love to connect, if you're open." KM. She stared at the message for a long minute, not because it confused her, but because it didn't. Kaylin, the man she'd met once during a lunch pitch years ago, the one who asked smart questions, then thanked her with a handwritten note, the one who never reached out again, until now. She typed back, "Hi, Kaylin. I remember that lunch. I remember you listened. Let's talk." Brielle. They met the next Thursday, downtown, tucked into a quiet cafe. He walked in with no assistant, no tablet, no pitch deck. Just him. Warm eyes, clean beard, soft confidence. She stood to greet him. He smiled. "Still grounded, I see." "And still aware," she replied. They sat, talked business first, then art, then the weight of being visible before being ready, then dreams, then failure, then healing. He didn't interrupt. She didn't pretend. At the end, he said, "You don't just brand companies, Brielle. You remind them of their soul." She blinked. That wasn't in the pitch. She replied quietly, "That's what I've been trying to do with myself." He held her gaze. And this time, when they stood, he didn't offer a handshake. He offered time, patience, something slow, earned. 6 weeks later, they sat at the launch of his new venture, Visuals by Knox Branding Studio. A photojournalist leaned in during the interview and asked, "Brielle, what made you say yes to this project?" She glanced at Kaylin, then looked into the camera. "Because I only say yes where I'm respected." That night, after the event, as they walked to their cars, Kaylin paused. "I know you've learned how to stand alone." She nodded. He added, "But I'd like to learn how to stand with you." She didn't rush the answer, didn't drown in feelings. She just said, "Then let's walk, not run." Walk. He smiled. Side by side. They walked into the Los Angeles night, two souls, no longer trying to prove anything, just learning how to build something, with their hands open. If this story made you feel something, anything, tell us in the comments. Have you ever had to rebuild after betrayal? Have you ever found something better on the other side of silence? Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and hit subscribe. For more real stories with real lessons, only on Mr. Charles Stories. We don't tell fairy tales. We tell stories that leave you changed. Until the next one.